Hey everyone, you're watching the Esperanza 243. Sorry about the glare. Well, I'm not really gonna do a debriefing. I want to, but I want to get as much reading as I can. If I can get this book, if I can get to page 36 by the middle of next week, then heck, I might as well just finish it on here. And do the rest of my book reading on my blog site. By the way, I'm just reminding you all that I'm going to do my vlogs. I'm not going to do my vlogs for a while. I'm going to stop doing my vlogs and do them and make it into blogs instead. And if you didn't watch my last video, I will tell you my my blog site one more time. It is princessamatrin.blogspot.com. Princess, AMETRINE .blogspot.com. Alright, so here goes the reading. The book is called Part of Your World, written by me. Of course, I'm not trying to be a little... never mind. Garnet rubbed her eyes and picked it up. "Hello?" she murmured. "Wow, you just woke up? I figured you'd be out on the rocks by now." Her eyes widened. "Marion, hi! Where are you? Did you bring any long shirts with you?" she asked, nearly crying out. Marion pulled the shell away from her ear. "Calm down, Garnet. I'm out on the rocks on top. Blech. I'm out on the rocks at the top. I didn't bring any shirts, but I did bring a towel." "Oh, good. I'll be there in a minute." She put down her shell and swam out of the waterlogged cave. She soon saw Marion out on the edge of the beach. She waved to her and kept swimming. She reached the rocks and tried climbing. "Sheesh, Garnet, let me help you. Let me help you," she said, reaching down. "I got it. I've been climbing like this since yesterday." She reached the top, almost breaking a sweat. Didn't think it would be that easy." Marion laughed. "I guess you're getting used to being a mermaid." She thought for a minute. "Here, use my towel. You can dry up." She handed it to her. Garnet took the towel, turned on her back, and patted her tail dry. She turned on her stomach and let the sun dry the rest. "Thanks, Marion," she said, putting the towel aside. She smiled. Her cousin smiled back. "It's going to take some time getting used to this," she murmured. She was about to take the towel back, but Garnet stopped her. Garnet chuckled. "You're not going to believe this, but my tail is almost dry." "What does that mean?" "Good grief, Aunt Kaylee didn't tell you. Just wait." Just wait. A few minutes later, her tail was completely dry. The tail started shining and turned into legs. Marion gasped. "Oh my gosh," she whispered. Garnet giggled and wrapped the towel around her. "I told you you weren't going to believe this. What do you think? It's incredible. You can come out whenever you want. Oh, now I'm jealous. I wish I was a mermaid," she started to complain. Garnet laughed. "Careful what you wish for, cousin. Besides, cooking is your dream. You don't want the rest of the state to wonder where the best cook is. They laughed. Very funny, Garnet. Did you bring anything else? She pulled out a bucket. I brought this to make a sand castle. She paused and looked at Garnet. Her cousin had this eager look, like she had a brilliant idea. But it looks like you know a good use for it. Do you want it? Oh, would I? That would help out with what I'm doing tonight. It doesn't have to do with those men, does it? Marion's eyes were wide. Garnet nodded. It does, Mary. I'm going to take some of those things out when the room is empty. The 2 boxes should be empty by the time the night is over. That's what you're doing? She shushed her, looking over the above. She shushed her, looking above the rocky area. People will think you're not alone. She looked around, and then towards the sun. Uh-oh. She looked at Marion. What time is it, Marion? She looked at her wrist. Get centered. She looked at her wrist. It's a little after 1, she said. What's going on? I'm meeting someone at 2. She looked around. She stepped down a couple of rocks and then stood up. She stepped down a couple of rocks and then stood up. She left the towel on the rocks. Come on, I want to show you something. Her cousin hesitated. Come on, it's not going to take long. She dived into the ocean, and her legs changed to a tail. She continued beckoning Marion to come in. Finally, she took her swim cover and watch off, stood up, and dived into the ocean. She stuck her head out. Oh wow, it's not as cold as it was 2 days ago. It's possible I warmed it up. They laughed. Want to see why it's so cool being a mermaid? Her cousin nodded. She stuck her hand out. She stuck out her hand. Hold on. Marion grabbed her hand. Now hold your breath and just watch. The next thing she knew, she and Garnet were underwater. She was swimming her best against the current. Marion looked around, admiring the blue-green waters. That did not sound normal. She was swimming her best against the current. Marion looked around, admiring the blue-green waters. Oh, my dog was right behind me. That doesn't... Alright, something's wrong with my dryer then. Where was I? Marion looked around, admiring the blue-green waters. They could see seaweed, coral reef, anemones, and all kinds of fish. It was beautiful. 2 different schools of fish were passing them. It's so beautiful. It's so beautiful, Garnet said. Her cousin nodded. Marion tapped on her shoulder. What? She pointed to the surface. Oh, right. They swam to the open air. Marion gasped after they surfaced. It was quiet for a while. Wow, that was amazing. I can see why you wouldn't want to leave. There's so much beauty. She nodded. That's why I want to figure out my mom's family history. Since she's not adopted, it's possible someone else in the family was a mermaid or merman. It was quiet again. She and Garnet looked around. Then Garnet looked at her cousin. "We need to go back. I want to make sure there's enough time to call Aunt Kaylee before the merman arrives." "You mean you're meeting the guy that you talked to yesterday?" Her little cousin nodded. "Be careful, Nettie. I'm sure there are suspicious characters underwater." Besides the octopus and the sharks, of course." She giggled. "Come on." She held out her hand again. "I don't want to be late." She grabbed her hand once again and took a deep breath. Then they dove underwater and swam back to the rocky edge of the beach. Marion climbed up the rocks, dried herself off, and put her swim cover and watch back on. "I'll see you tomorrow?" "I don't know. It depends on what happens during my meeting with Mr. Ewald, the merman." Her cousin nodded. "I'm going to tell him everything." Marion gasped. "No, you can't. What if he ends up shackling you or something?" "He wouldn't do that," she said, shaking her head. "When I talked to him today, he told me someone is interested in meeting me. I think it might have to do with one of my ancestors. I'll call you later on to tell you what happened, okay?" Marion sighed. "All right, I'll talk to you later." She picked up the towel. "Wait, could you leave the towel? I might want to get out before the sun sets." Marion became confused. "Before sunset?" "It seems that if I'm out of the water but it's after sunset, instant tail." Her cousin's eyes widened with fascination. She thought for a minute and put the towel down. "Thanks. What time is it?" She looked at her watch. "It's 15 minutes to 2. Hardly any time to talk to Mom. I'll call her and let her know you're busy." She nodded. "Thanks. I love you, sis. Talk to you later?" Her cousin nodded. "I love you too. Bye. And good luck," she said. She gave Garnet a hug. She hugged back and then watched Marion leave. She grabbed the towel and hooked it on a rock that was pointy, yet not sharp, and above the water. "There. Now whenever I need it tonight, I'll be able to tug on it and it'll fall." She grabbed the bucket her cousin left for her, went back in the water, and entered the waterlogged cave. She lied down and closed her eyes to rest. And then it didn't take long for the merman to arrive. He peeked in and saw her resting. He raised one brow. "Hello, Miss Garnet?" She got up from resting her eyes. She looked at him. "Hello, Mr. Ewald." He smiled faintly. "You have news for me?" Sorry. Trying to remember the accent here. "You have news for me?" She nodded. "Good. And I have news for you." Her brows rose with interest. "Before I came, I thought to ask His Majesty if he remembered the merperson who disappeared during the storm." Her eyes widened. "Did he remember?" He shook his head. "Just barely, ma'am. It was quite a few decades after he became king. He remembers being upset about it." Her shoulders drooped, but she gave him an interesting look. "Does he remember what the merperson looked like?" "I tried asking that. He barely remembers anything. But he does remember being disappointed when he found her. All he can remember is finding her at the surface and using his trident. In fact, it was one of the storms that had a ship." Her eyes were wide. "Oh my word, I'm related to a mermaid," she thought to herself.